everybody. Give me 1 second because I'm having some wonky audio stuff going on here real quick. But thank you for coming. This is kind of out of order because I know that we just had the big Truth in Virginia Education Forum, but stuff going on, and let's see if I can get these paired. Hang on 1 second for me. And surprisingly not, I get really tired of, all right, I think we're good to go. I get really tired with, all right, we're good to go. Arguing with the political party that usually I side with, to the right. So I thought it would be a nice change of pace. I don't know if that's what you want to call it, but a relief for me to actually attack something that's so radical and so beyond comprehension that maybe, just maybe, we can grab the parents of Virginia and elsewhere their attention about what's really going on in Virginia. So like I've been telling people is this: stop saying, please, don't California my Virginia, because the difference is California knows they're for California. Virginia is California. We just don't know it. There's not one single thing in California that Virginia does not have, including, but the difference is Virginia doesn't write laws like comprehensive sexuality laws, anything like that, that create an outrage that brings parent attention, community attention, anybody who gives a rat's butt attention. Virginia, still with a new governor, a new Senate, a red Senate, a red House, is that in a new purple state versus blue state, still writing and passing laws this last session that does what? They write blah, blah, blah laws that passes it to the VDOE, which is actually the VBOE, because the VDOE has no constitutional authority. So by doing that, we have it's called backdoor. They bring it to the back door. And here we are, again, 30 years behind the rest of the nation. Why? Because whether it's one party or both, because they both passed the laws, that would be family life going to kindergarten. That would have been approved by what? The General Assembly. And if you go back and pull that legislation, that was both parties. Family life, kindergarten, okay? Health standards of learning, which is where comprehensive sexuality education is coming in. Social and emotional learning, that would be a lot of Republicans voting to bring that in. This example of comprehensive sexuality education is the Castle Planned Parenthood approved. So that's where that's coming in, because Virginia has family life education law, whereas there's a lot of states that have actual comprehensive sexuality education law. So here we are, oh, we don't have comprehensive, we don't have a law for it. Well, come to find out, thanks to a Norfolk teacher, and then after blasting it, come to find out it's in a lot of places. Nobody's just ever said anything. So I wanted to go through how it got, essentially what it is, and that even though we believe Virginia is an abstinence-only family life, correct. Family life you will be notified for and have the opportunity to opt out. This is not included in family life. So in addition to family life, they are getting comprehensive sexuality education. And many divisions, and entirely too many divisions that I've shared this with, so, oh, well, that's Norfolk, that's not here. Well, second step, when I did this series with Deb Feldman, second step does K through 5 and 5 through 8 sexual education for kindergartners. So if your division has second step, don't discount yourself. So I'm not here on here all day because I'm notorious for doing that. I'm gonna. So this, if you look on our channel, this is going to be what I'm about to blow through kind of quickly, no pun intended, is this right here is what a show that I've done and a presentation that I've done, if you want to go back and find out more about this. And this is, you don't owe anyone a relationship with your kids, especially when they choose not to have a healthy one with you. That would be the entire public school system, private schools, that period. They don't want to let you in the door. They don't want to tell you what they're teaching your kids. They think that your children have rights and you don't. They think that they know what you're doing and you don't. You don't owe anybody a relationship with your kids. And please, for the love of God, remember this. Teach your kids that safe adults don't ask children to keep secrets. Common sense, right? Okay. And this is also a slide from presentations I've done before because I have that really inconvenient master's in geopolitical war history over here of the 20th century. How much history do we have to acknowledge what's going on? This would be the Bolsheviks, Lenin, the Frankfurt School. They created, directly led with critical theorists, guys. This is not just critical race theory, okay? Critical gender ideology, critical queer theory. Tell your politicians, I heard this the other day, that somebody was not allowed to say queer on the General Assembly floor. Well, sorry, that's what it's called, and that's actually what they refer to themselves as regularly. Believe that if children are over-sexualized to such an extent that it causes psychological harm to them, then the Marxist agenda will benefit. So this was 100 years ago. Lenin and the Bolsheviks overturned a nation by doing what? Sexualizing the children. He said, give me 5 years to teach the children, and the seed sown shall not be uprooted. Then there's the not so well-known Marxist theorist Gramsci of Italy, believed, one, that the only obstacle standing in the way of communist New World Order was Christianity. Boop. Similarly, Marxist theorist Georg Lukács of Hungary believed that in order to conquer the West, the family unit and Christianity must be uprooted. He is one that you need to know. Gramsci, 1, Lukács, 2. To enact a radical sexual education for children in 1919. Over 104 years ago, this was done in Hungary. To pave the way for communism, children would be eroticized, taught to be promiscuous, and guided towards left-leaning forms of nihilism. Communism and sanctioned pedophilia. The ruthless sexualization of children is a critical component of a broader plan to create a gender-fluid society that normalizes LGBTQIA+ sexuality and downplays heteronormativity. How many people have actually had heteronormativity thrown in their face? All the time on Twitter. All the time. So you expect us, it's abuse, and I'll pull up the article where that a grandparent, I believe in Iowa or Idaho, shared with me because her grandchildren live here, and I read it at. Can you send me the link? So I wanted to share it with people, but they literally, it's entitled, you don't own your children. Like nobody owns the children. And you started out thinking, if she hadn't prefaced it with, it just made me want to vomit reading it, I might have been like, okay, this could be about government schools. I don't know. But the article literally goes on to talk about Christians, heteronormativity is evil, and that we have no right to stamp our children as to what we want them to be growing up. And this is going to become the new norm as long as we accept every time that guys, stop saying the word gender, first of all. My first thing, sex. At the presentation, people I care about still saying the word gender. Gender is a social construct. Even before all of this madness Gender was what makes a woman, whether it's being a housewife or being this or that. Gender is a social construct. Sex, we are talking about sex, XX, XY. Every time that you get up and speak and talk about gender versus sex, you are contributing to the ongoing lie of biology doesn't exist anymore. So the primary benefit of sexually exploiting children is the likelihood of their growing into confused, angry, radical adults. And the goal of sexualizing kids into radical adults is to delegitimize parental control and destabilize the social order. Okay. In a nutshell, hasten the revolution. I'm going to jump off real quick. So, probably have some stalkers on here, as I usually do. So, many people know that I have coined Transtifa. Okay? That's not just me being an a-hole or me being insensitive. These are literally the people that the Antifa that were down at the monuments, you know, literal Antifa, who now have a different agenda. They are now at the VDOE meetings. They are now at the Standards of Learning speaking meetings. They are now almost literally everywhere. It's almost a little stage 5 clinger, I feel like. Everywhere I go is that it's literally, and what is the purpose of Antifa? To destabilize the social order at all costs. They don't care. And so when that's exactly what we're saying. So now that it's not burning monuments or, you know, getting rid of our history in Virginia, just to make it Virginia relative, they have now seeped into education. So again, here we go, turning them into radical adults and delegitimize parental control and destabilize the social order. Hitler did it. 3 main goals: to mobilize and discipline an entire generation of German youth in the spirit of National Socialism, to loosen their ties to the church, the family, and the past. One of the first things that, and I said this from the beginning with the monument thing, that Hitler did was he tore down all the monuments that he didn't like and that didn't fulfill what he was propelling. Saw it happen. We're still seeing it happen. Like, little tiny things across Virginia are being destroyed and ripped down. Not just monuments on Monument Avenue. Every day there's a different thing being removed, torn apart. Our history is being demolished before our eyes. To inculcate the ideal that the state was everything and the individual was nothing. Okay, have you guys heard, you know, I don't know, I'm thinking page 1 of the Kindergarten Standards of Learning for History. It's no longer sharing. It's sharing for the well-being of others, the collective. Everything that they're doing is for the collective well-being of others. Social emotional learning, guys. I said it at the Board of Education meeting. You can look up Blue Dot, which is UNESCO Mahatma Gandhi Institute. They literally tell you SEL is needed for the SDGs to get rid of dissonance. Dissonance is a negative emotive effect. We have to do SEL as early as possible so that when children are then told that for the SDGs, the well-being of Mother Earth and the global collective is more important than themselves, they will not have the dissonance, the negative emotive effect. That's nothing different than what it's saying right here, to inculcate the ideal that the state was everything. The state? Now we're talking about the globe. Okay, global citizenship. Bingo. He alone who owns the youth gains the few. I mean, everybody, every dictator, and this isn't even, I'm not even going to get into like Venezuela or Cuba or anything like that. This is just, we're just going to talk about Europe. Oh, and then there's Mao. Destabilizing children and the early loss of innocence results in the destruction of the family unit. Destabilized children tend to stray from their authority of their parents and often turn to the state or other institutions for parenting. So they destabilize the children. Now who are they going to turn to? Their allies, their teachers, their best friends, their trusted adults. Mao Zedong, Pol Pot, Castro's, Che Guevara, Stalin, the Kims of North Korea, all of them were brutal dictators enabled by a system that always places too much power into the hands of too few people. It corrupts. It's a corrupt and cruel system that allows an elite oligarchy. And I use that word a lot. Oligarchy, and I use vanguard a lot. We talk about an oligarchy. Do you think that we actually still have a democratic representative government? You can see it across the state with endorsements. Why are they endorsing each other? Where are we the people endorsing the people that we elect? They go into office and they don't vote. Sans my Senator Amanda Chase, who actually voted based on what her constituents wanted. They vote on what the GOP, the RPV, the Virginia Dems, the ACLU want. And that is called a vanguard meant to enslave an entire population. It's already been done. Okay? Khrushchev, Castro, Mao Zedong, they're all here. Don't like it? Sorry, it's what we're living with. When was the last time that you actually felt represented by the people that, or you got a call back from the person that you elected? And then this is another slide that I did because it's a great representation of the Uni Party. Do you know who's best friends? These two. Do you know who they're also best friends with? It's really scary, and I don't have time for that. Tony Blair, former Prime Minister. You want to know what's going on in America? Look at the UK. But right here. But this is good old Jebby. Jebby here, Excel and Ed. That's where we had that clip I shared of Podesto, who Youngkin appointed Andrew Rotherham, who he worked for, who also ran Kane and Hillary's. But that's right here. Jebby's big on this, Excel and Ed. Look up that YouTube channel. It's interesting. That's really important why we remember we do not live in a democracy or constitutional democracy. We live in a constitutional republic with democratically held elections. The difference, in a democracy, 51% of the people can take 100% of your rights. In a constitutional republic, the rights of all are equally, of all. Okay? That's not these protected classes, which is what they've done with things like bullying. Bullying isn't about all. Bullying is about, it's a literal definition, it's in the Virginia Code, and it's from the CDC in 2014, is that there has to be a power imbalance or a perceived power imbalance. That is not an equally protected right. Freedom of choice is allowed in a constitutional republic. In a democracy, the mob rules. So just a real quick blow through of critical queer theory and gender ideology and how this goes into play with comprehensive sexuality education. In the quest to take over all aspects of society, the dismantling of the family unit, just one of the goals of Marxism, and the branch of Marxism tasked with breaking apart the family unit, is gender ideology and critical queer theory. And this is just a cute little asking about pronouns. This was from like preschool, I found. So critical queer theory and gender ideology advocate for certain groups' privileges, which they refer to as rights. This is why when I say trans rights are not human rights, I don't apologize when I say it. Human rights are human. We are human rights. Okay, we are human. Okay? Privileges are different. Okay? When we talk about child rights, parental rights, not the same thing. Parental rights protected by the Constitution, God. Okay? Clear. Child rights came out of the UN, and that's where all of this is going to come together. These privileges are meant to affect state policy, private sector policy. Often these privileges are nothing more than a demand for overt sexualization, and children are included in the audience. And we're going to talk about allyship, because you're going to see ally a lot in being an ally. An adult is sexualizing kids behind a closed door. What is that? That's grooming. In modern times, an adult that wears the label of trans or trans ally, that's included with that little sticker that teachers put in their window that says safe, this is a safe space. What that is remember the beginning of safe adults don't ask children to keep things from a safe space. They'll literally say, they'll tell you, your secrets are kept here. Okay. So an ally, to be an ally to somebody, is going to be the same thing as that safe space, is that you can tell me anything. I won't tell your parents. I'm your trusted adult. The transgender movement, not to be confused with trans people. I am so tired of people talking to me about why I hate trans people. I don't hate anybody, first of all. I do not want you sexualizing and turning children into trans anything. We are not talking about trans people. We are talking about children. Children. Okay? So don't tell me that I am hateful, that I hate trans anything, that I'm homophobic, transphobic, racist. I don't even know how racist is coming into this conversation, but we're talking about children. Okay? Sets up the conversation that revolves around sexuality. Keep that in mind. Comprehensive sexuality education. This is not even comprehensive sex ed. How one perceives the self. One topic is erotic, while the other is highly intimate. Both of those, erotic and intimate, are covered in comprehensive sexuality education. It is the perfect guise to manipulate and then over-sexualize children, all in the name of rights. And I'm a survivor, a child sex abuse survivor through grooming by sexually explicit graphic material from the ages of 6 to 10. So, this is where I get really unapologetic, is that you're grooming children. You're destroying them. It is the murder of child innocence. Period. But this is from research. This is not just my opinion. Children who encounter sexualization early and lose their innocence early are more likely to be anti-individualistic because they are forced to turn to social institutions early on in development after sexualization severs their relationship with their parents. The result of anti-individualism cannot be overstated. Anti-individualism, the collective. So you can take this idea and apply it to the history standards of learning. Any of the standards of learning. Profile of a graduate, collaborative, critical thinking, collaborative, like all of this is collectivism. But this just happens to have a trigger point because the sexualization has made parents wait. So these are the two manuals that I was sent. This one, let me see. This one here, let me hold it up for you. Middle school. 580 some pages. I had to read. High school, about 200 pages. So that's what it looks like. Now, you'll note, so down here, Planned Parenthood. Right here, I don't know if I can zoom in here. Can I? Yeah. Okay. Down here, Planned Parenthood. Over here, Roby Harris. So who is Roby Harris? Roby Harris is... Nope. Are you doing that? There you go. All right, Roby Harris, look. This book, who remembers this book? It's perfectly normal. We had and read this book at the Chesterfield County School Board and had it removed. Why? Because even under semi-not sane, is that this was in our middle school. Okay? She is the co-author of this with Planned Parenthood. Okay? Not to mention this book used to be called Let's Talk About Sex. And so here, this is Monica Klein. Monica Klein, if you guys, I have begged so many people, the mind polluters. Fearless Features. Stream it, get your friends together, buy a DVD. We've done it, we'll do it again. It is now this is not just somebody who's researched and is mad about it. She used to work for Planned Parenthood. She was one of the people that taught people comprehensive sexuality education. So she has now come out and said the truth about what's going on with comprehensive sexuality education.
you welcome, please, with me, Monica Klein.
Well, it is a pleasure to be with all of you today. I love being in a room with like-minded people who love family, who love liberty, and who love our country and our people of faith. And sometimes doing this work, I don't know about you, feels lonely. So to be here with all of you is very comforting. My name is Monica Leal Klein, and I'm the founder of It Takes a Family. I educate and equip parents with the knowledge and skills necessary to strengthen family trust and confidence. My goal is to help parents reclaim parenthood, but this wasn't always my story. I'm a former comprehensive sex educator and Title X training manager of over 10 years. I was trained by both the gay community and Planned Parenthood. I not only taught comprehensive sex education, but I also lived it. I started this career in 1996. Planned Parenthood was integral in teaching me how to reach school-age children. I received a private training from the Director of Sex Education in Austin, Texas. She began my training by making the case for comprehensive sex education. She described girls as young as 10 coming into Planned Parenthood with objects in their bodies, sexually transmitted diseases, and yes, even having abortions. And I was horrified by the stories, and my first reaction was, teach me how to teach these girls not to have sex. She reached over and patted me on the knee and she said, no, dear, we're not going to teach them not to have sex. We're going to teach them how to do it safer. You see, we meet them where they're at and we teach them how to do it safer. Telling them not to have sex is judging because you're judging their choices. My heart sank, but I was convinced. I knew, this was the expert, right? This is the person, this is Planned Parenthood receiving Title X funding. They're receiving all sorts of funding, so I thought I could trust her. So here's the first activity that she taught me, which is meant to break down the natural inhibitions of our children. The kids are asked to name the now that they're comfortable with these but when they notice that the authority in the room is encouraging them, they become a bit judging because you're judging their choices. My heart sank, but I was convinced. I knew, this was the expert, right? This is the person, this is Planned Parenthood receiving Title X funding. They're receiving all sorts of funding, so I thought I could trust her. So here's the first activity that she taught me, which is meant to break down the natural inhibitions of our children. The kids are asked to name the reproductive parts from medically accurate terms to slang terminology. At first, the kids are shy. But when they notice that the authority in the room is encouraging them, they become a bit more comfortable and begin to share out loud. By the end of the activity, even the most shy student is participating and giggling. Sometimes the educator may even ask the kids to use a marker to write the words themselves on the board. And what's left on the board is a collage of crass and dehumanizing words that objectify the human person and sexual activity. Now that they're comfortable with these sexual terms, the next lesson is to talk about their different types of sex. We covered oral sex, vaginal sex, and anal sex and all its associated bodily fluids. It means we talked about sex toys, tattoos, piercings, multiple partners, condom negotiation, dental dams, saran wrap, role plays to practice the negotiation skills, and informing partners about sexually transmitted infections. So whether those children were actually sexually active or not, it was the comprehensive sex educator's job to introduce them to every possible form of sex, which objectifies and dehumanizes the person and normalizes sex at a young age. So what just happened here? Let me break it down for you. Planned Parenthood attempts to convince the culture that the sexual risk avoidance message brings judgment to people. Planned Parenthood does not believe in moral absolutes, but rather relativism. They believe that moral absolutes are judgmental, and they use that lie to silence parents and the culture. They've reduced our children and humanity down to very animalistic level. They're basically saying that kids are sexual from birth and are driven by their sexual desires, especially at puberty. They believe that they can't help themselves and they shouldn't have to, and they call this their sexual rights. And that's the next point, sexual rights. When we talk about someone having rights taken from them, we envision an oppressor. So who is the oppressor? Who in all the world would not want children having sex? The parent. Planned Parenthood views protective, conservative, faith-filled, moral absolute believing parents as pesky and a barrier to service. In my 10 years working with Planned Parenthood, at every training, at every workshop, and at every conference, I always heard, this is their quote, parents are a barrier to service. Planned Parenthood endears themselves to youth and attempts to replace the parent using secrets, or as the CDC calls it, privacy and confidentiality. Point number 4, grooming and sexual abuse. The activity used to break down inhibitions is very much like grooming for sexual abuse. It is a slow progression of getting children comfortable with talking about sexually explicit topics with adults who are not their parents. Basically, comprehensive sex education breaks down inhibitions and prepares children for sexual activity and sexual discussions. My belief is that this type of education normalizes sexually explicit conversations with adults who are not their parents, placing these children at risk of being coerced by sexual predators in person and online, because it's become normalized. The last step is to promote the use of condoms, lubrication, testing, treatment, and abortion. You see, when Planned Parenthood teaches children to objectify themselves and the sexual act, then it's just a natural next step to then objectify and dehumanize the unborn child. Then that cycle can start all over again. And that is the great hope of Planned Parenthood. Sexual freedom is promoted by them, by SICAs, by advocates for youth, and they are using comprehensive sex education to change the sexual attitudes of a whole generation of children so that they...
Here I am again. So you can see this, you can look up Monica Klein. It's a YouTube video. She has a lot. She has one, if you type in Monica Klein, the mind polluters, that's great because she goes into SHAB or SHACs, Student Health Advisory Committees, Student Health Advisory Boards, which is really important if you're not paying attention and you're not somebody that is involved in reading policy that school boards change. This is what happens. It just happened that unfortunately for Chesterfield County is that I had seen her speak about SHACs. I had gotten this Norfolk and I had figured out how it came in because we don't have comprehensive sexuality education in law. We have family life. So go back and if you read the health standards of learning and the social emotional learning standards of learning that, by the way, we have, and people say, well, what is our current what are they, they're not doing anything, guys. On our website, vafcf.org, we have a jot form that goes to the governor, the lieutenant governor. They know what social emotional learning is. They know what it is an avenue for. I have had conversations with Bela, who is now gone, and Elizabeth Schultz, who is still there. And then I was ghosted with my what is wrong with social emotional learning. So you can try whatever you want to get them to care, but social emotional learning is not going anywhere. And that means this is not going anywhere because this is the back door for it. So I would welcome anybody else to make some progress on this, but this is something that we've been trying to do, and they are aware how destructive social emotional learning is, even if you don't have the comprehensive sexuality piece in it. So Chesterfield last week, this is what they're notorious for doing. They try to just, slide in and change this policy regarding student wellness. And it went from a list of specific things like achieving personal academic development, social success. Again, none of their business in the first place. And with the child at the center, gosh, guys, she goes on to talk about whole child. Chesterfield's contracts, because we can pull them up, all of our social emotional learning contracts are now written as whole child, whole school, whole community. Guys, that really means they're going to teach your whole child. And that includes this. So it now says this framework includes 10 components: physical education and physical activity, nutrition, environment and services, health education. So student wellness now includes, it's just this broad health education. So it's the back door. Social and emotional climate. They've actually started using the word climate. Climate, guys, we know the climate of a school, it's like one of those words that you should understand, is how racist or how allied your school is to these protected classes. The physical environment, but what is physical environment and student wellness? This has nothing to do with actual, what we would consider like health education. Health services, counseling, psychological and social services, employee wellness, community involvement, and family engagement. Now keep in mind, community involvement, but family engagement, not family involvement, okay? You have to start reading, like paying attention to words. Community involvement, but family engagement. Okay, so you have to, this is like reading legislation. And so all of this stuff crossed out. To foster and promote a culture of wellness in CCPS, it used to say the school board's 5 wellness priorities, and then it would break it down, and then it would say the standing wellness policy team, the SHAB, this team will be an extension, okay? So with the school board, the SHAB will. Now it says, the School Health Advisory Board will assist with the development of healthy policy in school division and the evaluation of the status of school health, health education, and school environment and health services. They have completely eliminated the school board. Do you know who, okay, the SHAB? SHAB is, you can, if you are lucky enough to find out that your division is taking applications to become part of it, the school board members then go through and bring on members of SHAB that they select. And then they have meetings, I don't know, 4 times a year, 5 times a year. Finally, after fighting them, they finally put up on board docs when the meetings are being held, because they are public meetings. You can go and speak to them. But they didn't want people to know that. So if your division does not publicly post when they're holding their budget meetings, their school health advisory board meetings, you need to make them too as part of open government. But here, so this is what I told them. No, we did not elect a school health advisory board to determine what happens to our children. We elected you, the school board. We didn't elect a superintendent. We didn't elect we hired you. You work for us. You hire them. You don't promulgate, hand off your authority to somebody who is not constitutionally responsible for what happens to our children. So we'll see what happens next month after I challenge them. But this is what they do. And if you don't ever pay attention and you don't ever notice, they eliminated themselves as the school board right here. And they handed it to the School Health Advisory Board will assist in the development of health policy in the school division. That's not what the Virginia Constitution says. The Virginia Constitution does not say policy development has community, school board, parents, okay, that's who is involved in policy development, not the VSBA, not the School Health Advisory Board, okay? Development of health policy in the school division and the evaluation of the status. These are not, The evaluation is the school board's job that you elected. Now they're going to hand that off. Health status of school health, health education, school environment, and health services. So now you have a board that you can't get on because your school board picks who goes on it. They're determining your child's health services, school environment. Guess what? You didn't elect them either. Sorry, I get really mad about this. And then it says Chesterfield County Public Schools will support from the SHAB, will implement and ensure compliance. So they're going to, the school board's going to support SHAB and ensure compliance, including relevant record keeping. Periodically, CCPS will consider revisions to the policy, and at that time, in coordination with SHAB, no, engage a diverse group of stakeholders. First of all, let me be really clear about this. The Virginia State Constitution says that a policy is up for revision at any time. All it takes is one school board member to make a motion and a second to second it. That's it. So right here, you have to know your Constitution, because right here, this, periodically, Chesterfield County Public Schools will consider revisions to the policy. No. And do you know what else? Is that even though we revise the standards of learning every 7 years, do you know that the Virginia Constitution also states those are up for revision at any time also? Annually, Chesterfield County Public Schools will inform families and the public about the content, implementation, or any updates. Annually, they will inform families. How? Buried in the website? Okay. How are you going to inform families? Because I don't know any family that's ever been informed. And then keep in mind, guys, community involvement, family engagement. Okay. So family engagement, what does that mean? Annually. Annually. So just because this is my division, I would be pulling up board docs and looking up your wellness policy. Because if this is happening here, after what's just happened in Norfolk, and I know in Fairfax, they at least had a vote on it. They didn't sneak it in the back door. This is why I say, guys, whatever is going on in Fairfax and Loudoun, okay? Don't think, oh, those kooky 2 counties, they're doing crazy stuff. No, they're upfront about it. Is that they want you to look at what this hand's doing. Don't look at what this hand's doing. So whatever another division is doing, you have to know that it is either in your division, it is on the way, or it has been shipped to you. So people say, oh, well, it's not here. Really? And this is how you backtrack stuff, guys. Just like legislation, when you pull up your policies, it should have the revision dates. Boop, 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 boop. So go back through, and just like legislation, look and see how things have changed and what they've redone. Lord have mercy. I don't even know what this is. So, we're going to jump to the actual manuals from Planned Parenthood. So, to start with, the Get Real definition. Okay, now this is a CASEL-aligned social emotional learning comprehensive sex ed. Ding, ding, ding. The health standards of learning in Virginia have CASEL on the second page. Health, not standard, not social emotional learning standards of learning. Health standards of learning. Then we have family life standards of learning. Then we have social emotional learning. Now, thanks to Spurriel and etc. and everybody else, including every senator except Amanda Chase, we now have a mental health curriculum that's going to be handed to the VDOE that we can't control, and we didn't elect them either. So that's just how much mental health and how many backdoor policies we have going on. So this is not abstinence. Okay, what does abstinence mean to everybody? You abstain, right? You don't do it. It's not gray area. Abstinence is abstinence. Nada. So Virginia has abstinence law. Get Real has redefined it. defines abstinence as voluntary choosing not to engage in certain sexual behaviors, including any sexual behaviors that can result in pregnancy or sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. People may have different ideas about what constitutes abstinence, from no sexual contact of any kind, including kissing, to abstaining only from sexual intercourse and all points in between. Now keep this right here, she mentioned SECUS. Okay, SECUS is one of those that you need to know. Sex Ed for Social Change is what it is currently. Guidelines for Comprehensive Sexuality. I have all these manuals. If I could go through all of them, I would. SECUS. When SECUS is mentioned, just like glisten in any, which it will be, in anything revolving your children, go to our group on Facebook. We have the opt-out form that lists anything my child does, anything regarding SECUS, glisten, Trevor Project, blah, 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 list. Whoop, to attach to your PPRA. You have to be very specific with these people, okay? If you're going to keep them in, fight to protect your children from this stuff. All right, back here we go. Oh, I'm gonna vomit. Okay. Suggestions for negotiating sex education as future teachers. Guys, I encourage you, I didn't bring this up. Type in JMU Sex Ed. JMU, James Madison University, is pumping out sex ed teachers. It's disgusting. Teachers could involve, Sylvia said, notice sexually transmitted disease has been, yes. Sexually, STDs, it's because they don't want it to seem like a disease. Now, people will argue, well, it's not a disease. It isn't, or infections, sexually transmitted infection or sexually transmitted illness, or because disease would be what? Too frightening. If you called it STD, sexually transmitted disease, you might what? Discourage children, because disease is a scary word, whereas infection or illness is not so scary. Jan said, I'm cringing as my one and only grandchild. Jan, call me. I will help you. Will likely be in CCPS. Yeah, I feel for you. I have a 6-year-old and an almost 13-year-old. And after what my 13-year-old, my 12-year-old in 6th grade last year, we made the decision, and it will forever be life-altering. I'll take this off real quick. It will forever be life-altering for our family because we live by scrimping and saving. And my husband works his proverbial ass off so that I can do this and raise our children. Because it became so evident that, especially, and I'm not saying it's any better for boys, but is that having daughters and having been a victim of child sex abuse, knowing what grooming does to children, the thought, because even if this is not front and center in Chesterfield, they are doing family life K through 12, which includes positive or negative touching to kindergartners without parents. Even if that's the basic thing that you understand, is I don't want anybody talking to my child about touching at 5 years old. That's not me. And I especially don't want it from the teachers in Chesterfield County. Not all of them. I love some of them. But the majority, why in the world would you want these people who wanted to mask your kids forever talking to your children? The ones that think that all these books, 21 transgender picture books in Chesterfield County K through 5 is okay, it's good, it's their right. Come to a school board meeting, hear them talk about it. Guys, I love you guys. Thank you for supporting me. because there's days that I do that this is crazy. But so this here, this is what it is. Okay. Teaching older, this is grooming. Teachers grooming children. Teachers could involve peer mentors. Teaching older students to be confident about and comfortable with speaking about sexuality sets a great example for younger students. Through adequate training, peer mentors. Okay, I know that a lot of you have heard about this collaborative classroom where they're taking the CBG, the gifted kids, and putting them in with the sped kids. It's the same thing. They're teaching children that it is your responsibility as an extremely gifted child to take time from your learning to give back to this gifted child or to this special education child. It is no longer what the child needs. It is what the child's obligation. And we are seeing that now in Chesterfield County. Parents are then told they cannot remove their child from the gifted program, that this is what they have to do. So it's the same thing, just a different scenario. Peer mentors become a resource for students throughout the year, even after the unit is over in the curriculum. So exactly what you want is your 6th grade child having an 8th grade peer mentor who they can go to, who's been taught this stuff, that they can go to after the class is over and talk to it more. You want to talk more? Okay, come, let's talk. Let's become best buds. Students may be more willing to ask difficult questions of a peer than a faculty member. So let's groom an older child to then groom younger children. We are creating a generation. And what have we seen? Sexual assaults in schools by children on children. Start questioning why. Why? Why? Peer mentors have an inside view into the scope and tone of sexual activity of a school, and can therefore serve as a liaison between students and faculty and health professionals. Let's process that one more time. Learners, because they're not students anymore. Peer mentors can then therefore serve as a liaison. So older children, because they're still children, can act as a liaison between younger children are saying and doing to students, faculty, and health professionals, who I will remind you include social workers. So older children being taught to go and tell students, faculty, and social workers what younger children are saying, doing, and that does not include just sexual activity. Yes, great point. Jesus, peer mentorship programs in K-12 schools are mere indoctrination programs, and also programs which shift responsibilities of school teachers and staff onto gifted children, all without compensating the gifted child. Amazing point. Peer mentorship programs are something that from a year ago is that you're going to start seeing a lot of this, and it's written into the new standards of learning, is where going out and doing outreach work, and this goes into the peer mentorship, is where it's going to be framed as community outreach. And what it's doing is removing the child from the classroom and putting them in different environments that you don't know or you can't control. It's the same thing. And but yes, the gifted children and the sped children are the two of the most historically marginalized groups of children who don't matter. Okay? The gifted children, you must sacrifice being brilliant for the well-being of others. The sped children, are no use to the workforce, and I've said this for a year now. They are no use to the workforce or to recover Virginia's economy or for the global collective, and that is the only conclusion that I can come to that is the reason why they don't give one rat's butt how many violations they get from the Fed Ed, how many superintendents they pass it down to. They do not care. They are not going to change it. We have somebody, Samantha Hollins, the VDOE, who James Lane gave a fake license to, who's running special ed there. Parents every single month are up there talking to them about it. They won't fire her. Okay, so in this manual right here, it's really important to understand that when they talk about parental, because this manual had a lot of pages on parental involvement, parental activity, but it's all prefaced by parents or who? Other people. Students will identify caring adults in their lives in the first lesson of each grade. These may include parents, mentors, and other family members, religious leaders, coaches, and teachers. Students who are concerned about asking a parent to participate may be able to complete the family activities with another caring adult. And here is the resource. Caring adults. 3 caring adults I can talk, this is 6th grade, I can talk to about sexuality are, boop, boop. What 6th grader, unless you're one of those really cool open parents who is going to list their parent. And then keep in mind, they then list the book, It's Perfectly Normal, as a resource. Then they list, look up what's happening to my body for boys and girls. And then, look, they give the kids 6th grade website and phone resources. Website, phone, 6th grade. Okay? I cut it off because it was just enough. Here. Resources. So what did grade 6 as a collective look like? Creating the climate, communication and refusal skills, relationships and boundaries, anatomy and reproduction, the penis and related parts, the vagina and related puberty, abstinence, decision making, and grade. Okay? Then we go to grade 7. Media literacy and sexuality. They literally talk about actors, and how the media and movies can portray sexuality in a good way or a bad way. And yes, I am going to eventually post the whole entire 800-page conundrum from everybody. But I find that when I do that, it's just a waste of time. So it will eventually go on our website for everybody to have the viewing pleasure, but I wanted to break it down little by little so that when you get it, you know what you're looking at. Because if not, you can look at it and easily, because parent involvement is mentioned in so many pages, that you could look at it and be like, what the hell is she talking about? Like, this is perfectly fine. This is a bunch of... And so that's why I want is that you have to pick apart the verbiage. Let's see. Be on the lookout for Jerry Raley, now going to be the VDOE Chief of Staff. Heard all about him. He was our superintendent who was so hard for gender neutral bathrooms and locker rooms. Of course he was. People say, well, how would Youngkin do that? Well, this is the same governor, I was going to try not to bash him, that was on Seeking Alpha on CNBC applauding the children who walked out for during the transgender walkout that was organized by adults like Ghazala Hashmi for exercising their First Amendment rights. Okay? Same governor. That's not the governor we elected. So the people that he continues to bring in, like Andrew Rotherham, who worked for John Podesta under the Clinton administration. I mean, guys, just add the equations together, okay? And then you get to high school. Oh, sorry, did I go? So, deciding about sexual behavior, create gender and sexual identity. This is grade 7. Introduction to protection methods. This is when they pull out the cucumbers and they teach our children to put condoms on. Not only that, but about using saran wrap as a dental dam for oral sex for your 7th graders. High school. Negotiating postponement and protection. It just gets worse. So this is 6th grade. 6th grade. Okay. Look at this. SEL skills addressed. Right here. Logic model. Increase communication with parents and other caring adults. Lesson goals. Create group rights and responsibilities. Remember that. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by comments. Create group rights and responsibilities. Keep that. It's going to come up in a second. Communicate with peers about sexuality. Sexuality. Okay, this is not sex. This is not biology. This is sexuality. Identify an adult with whom the student can talk about sexuality. This is not you. Identify an adult with a teacher that they can talk about. You're eliminated. Review your SEL skills. Review meanings of sex and sexuality. Create the class, this is going to be important, class responsibilities poster. And then you've got student handouts, SEL skills, find someone, again, family activity, or what? Identified adult. Here, right here. Be sure to include confidentiality in the rights and responsibilities to explain your role as this is a teacher note, your role as a trusted adult and mandated reporter. Okay? Teachers are mandated reporters. That is supposed to, and it always has been, a good thing. But when now in this climate, in this day and age, when we have delegates and senators writing legislation to criminalize parents who do not affirm this is not a good thing. Trusted adult used to be a good thing. Combined with mandated reporter in this atmosphere, in this day and age, is very frightening for parents. When they say they're coming for your children, you better be sure that everything these are minors. These are 11-year-olds. Sorry. Okay, next slide. And then it goes into introduction to class rights. What rights do you need in order to engage in a class focused on sexuality and sexual health? What rights or responsibilities can we add? I'm sorry, I'm laughing at this because rights and responsibilities. The school has all the rights, but none of the responsibilities. Keep that in mind. I know I've talked about that before. They can teach your kid whatever they want because they have the right. But when it comes to responsibilities, the blowback, they don't have any of that. What can we all do to make this class successful? Important rights and responsibilities. So they've already, this is not a class activity because they've already given you right here. Be enthusiastic. Feel positive about your sexuality. I have to throw that in. These guys, my daughter's in 7th grade. These are 12 and 13-year-olds. Feel how you feel. Pass. Self-care. Guys, that's another one. When you see self-care, you need to, it's not. Adults talk about self-care. I need self-care more than anybody. But keep in mind, guys, this is not academics. They're not getting any smarter. I just had to throw that in there. Express your opinions. Ask questions. Be respected. Not have assumptions made about you. Privacy and confidentiality. From whom? Everybody. Everybody. Including the parents who raise you, love you, take care of you, because guess what? We're the enemy. So when your children come home and are treating you different, I've lived this with my child. When you have no relationship with them and it's constantly like this, and you can't figure out why, you need to figure out why. I removed my child from this environment, and immediately I had a different child in my house. Grade 7. Gender and sexual identity. Identify gender stereotypes. Guys, they're telling your children exactly what no matter what you teach at home, they're teaching your children gender and sexual identity. And yes, it is sickening. And I'm hoping to outrage enough people that this may be the tipping point to where we finally get parents up in arms. I'm hoping. Because Virginia is a dumpster fire, and it's not one or two. Look, sorry, I'm like ADHD. Discuss LGBTQIA issues respectfully. Bloop. 7th grade. Explain the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. 7th grade. 7th grade. And don't be sitting there saying, oh, well, this is Norfolk, this isn't here. No. I have submitted. I took Oregon's. They submitted a request, and they were able to get, through FOIA, a list of every division teaching, every different. So hopefully when that comes back, we'll be able to find out. Now, I don't trust those things. Someone said, how can they explain that seriously? Well, that's the problem, is that when gender fluidity, and the person is asking the difference between sexual orientation is any way they want, depending on what teacher you have. Really. Explain the difference between sexual orientation and identity. I mean, that's the problem, is that gender fluidity is exactly that. That is why you have transgender, whereas adults who are not the people advocating for this, transsexual. Transsexual are adults who actually feel like they are in a different body, which is why when they change their sex, they actually are men who dress and change to be women. Transgender, you don't see children with boys dressing as girls. You may see girls more often than not looking more like males, but they look desexed. They look androgynous because gender is constantly evolving. You can be transgender and also be transphobic. LGBTQIA+, why do you think there's like 68 of them? Pan, poly, cisgender, lesbian, cisgender, like it's nonsensical. And that's why it's called gender fluidity. It's fluid. It's constantly, so they explain it however they want. And then here, gender and sexuality identity vocabulary list. They literally have an assignment, like, and I didn't put it on here, I don't think, where they do like male, female, assigned at birth, and they do things, they go up and they have activities, and children are supposed to go up and put like what they think, like things like growing facial hair at puberty. Like this thing is so filled with so many classroom activities that it'll blow your mind. So stereotypes about men, boys, women, girls, slips of paper for anonymous questions, which means anonymous answers, or extremely non-anonymous answers about extremely scary topics. So terms to use: straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, gender identity, ally, LGBTQ+, questioning, transgender, gender expression. And then right, okay, and then this one, defining harassment and bullying and being an ally. Ask students to define the term ally. This is 7th grade. Note that this term was defined in the previous lesson as someone who supports the rights of people, okay? 7th graders. In the previous lesson, they were taught they had to be an ally. Is someone who supports the rights of people who identify as LGBTQ+. but it can be defined as someone who supports the rights of another person. Explain what it takes, that it takes strong self-awareness, guys. This is what I've been saying, is that SEL is not about bullying. When you see self-awareness, it is then here. This is why SEL is linked to comprehensive sexuality education, as well as the glue to critical race theory, diversity, equity, and inclusion, workforce education. So everybody on both sides of the political spectrum are getting what they want because it's the glue that holds the uni party together. Somebody said, my son being 8 years old was told he needed to be friends with his bully. Are you being kidding me? No, I'm not kidding you. That's called restorative justice, restorative practices. And I'm going to show you that if your child, like you just said, if your child goes to a teacher and is said that so-and-so is stalking me on the playground, or so-and-so is bullying me, or so-and-so is this, they're going to tell your child, because this is part of the global collective, is that they need empathy, or you need to understand, try to understand what they need, what they are going through. Okay? Children are being victimized every single day, and there's nobody in the schools to stand up for them. Nobody. Period. Sorry, I get really mad about this stuff. Bullying and LGBTQ. Guys, remember, the definition of bullying was changed by the CDC and in the Virginia Code. There has to be a power imbalance or perceived power imbalance. Okay? I'm not going to say it, but you can probably figure out in your head where those power imbalances are and who is not included. Okay? I have never had... Okay, so popular children cannot be bullied. More often than not, it is white children that cannot be bullied. I can't tell you how many parents... My daughter was one for years. They didn't care. They didn't care. Why? Because there has to be a power imbalance. Power imbalance, critical race theory, by birth. By birth. What happened to the motto of no child being harmed while at CPS, that's what I should call it, at CCPS? Well, when was that? Is the first thing. And because I can tell you now, the motto, the ethics, the everything through the policies have all been changed. And it's like, but things like that are like, 28 years ago. That would probably be, okay, so I'm 43. I graduated from Midlothian High School in 1998. Things drastically, yes, 28 years ago, that would be correct. Guys, this is the day and age okay, real quick, I'm just going to jump this. This is what we live in, not just here. If your child is getting the crap beat out of them and they lift a hand to defend themselves, they get 10 days suspension, same as the child who was beating the crap out of them. Truth. True story. If you defend yourself, you get suspended too. You lift a hand, you get suspended too. Somebody said, never saw any of this while I was in school. I need more context than that. But unless you were in school in the last 3 or 4 years, especially in the last year or two, you wouldn't have seen it. So when I'm saying that, what the evolution of how we got here happened around 1998, 99, 2000. That's when it began. Where we got here today, no, if you were in school 10 years ago, you may not have seen it. You may have seen PBIS or restorative practices being started. You may have seen that, but this level, no, this has been on a trajectory of like hyperspeed. And what we all thought was going to get better last year has not. So let's see. This is, okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and skip to this one. Imagine you, because as I do, have a 7th grade daughter. They're role-playing in class. They pull 2 girls up in front of a 7th grade class, and they role-play. Brittany's girlfriend wants to have oral sex with her. Process that real quick. 2 girls role-playing. Your daughter has to role-play with another girl who doesn't want to have who wants to have oral sex with her. Brittany really likes her girlfriend, and her friends say that having oral sex will bring them closer. But Brittany's mom thinks she should wait until she's older. Brittany agrees with her mom, but she's scared of hurting her girlfriend's feelings. What should she say? Guys, this is not the only one. This is just the one I happen to have an image of, so please don't think that this is the one I continuously show. Okay. There's, let's see, too big. Anton and Maria, so again, more role-playing. Anton and Maria have become very close in the past month and enjoy each other's company, but are just friends. Anton has never had sex, but his friends say that he'll have several sexual experiences that they've had. 7th grade already. Again, guys, it's not just about homosexuality, transgender. I don't want my straight children in front of other children rehearsing consent or any of this without my knowledge in front of a class. Period. Will and Todd have been seeing each other for the past year. Will just found out that his family's planning on moving before he enters high school. They both enjoy the sexual part. They both enjoy the sexual part of their relationship, which up to now has been kissing and touching each other. These would be 12 and 13-year-old boys. Dads. Because up till now it's been the moms. Dads. Your boy is pulled into the front of a class and made to role play this. Your son now has to stand up in front of a class with another boy and role play kissing and touching another boy. But now your son wants to go further, especially because but Todd does not want, okay? Let's just put this in. And that Veronica and Isaac just started dating. Isaac knows that Veronica has had sexual relationships before and assumes that she will want to have sex with him too. Guys, this is what it comes down to, is that this is what they call rehearsing consent. They're creating abusers. They're creating pedophiles. They're creating sexual deviants, amongst other things. They're also eroticizing children, and they're doing the exact thing they're telling you they're trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent pregnancy and STDs. So we're going to teach them about it as much as possible, because that's not going to possibly blow back in our face, because allowing 11-year-old girls to play MASH and have sleepovers and paint their nails who haven't even started their periods yet. We can't allow that. So sexualizing them as early as possible, that's not at all going to have anything blow back in our face, because who's writing this? Planned Parenthood. They're creating their future what? Clients. Ding, ding, ding. Why would Planned Parenthood be doing this? They're creating the need. The demand. Boop. But this right here, I know that this is like this icing on the cake when we talk about grooming, okay? This would be just the 8th grade image that I grabbed, but it's still applicable to everything else. So 2 of the scenarios, and this is during role play, about a relationship between characters of the same sex, which may cause students to struggle. If this happens, it is the perfect opportunity to remind students of the messages from lessons 7.3 and 7.4 about becoming an ally, and creating a safe school environment. And then it may be necessary to refer the student who is uncomfortable with the relationships with characters of the same sex. That child is no longer included in the safe space. The safe space that you hear about in school does not include your inclusion is exclusion. Does not include your children who do not fit into heteronormativity. Normativity. Safe space, they don't care about your child if they are not LGBTQIA plus, first and foremost. They are destroying children for what? The benefit of a few, they say, which is the exact same reason that we have transgender model policies for the few destroying the many. Same thing. And nobody cares and nobody will do anything about it. Chesterfield County, 63,000 children still living transgender bathroom, co-ed bathrooms, still living with parents having their parental rights removed. Yet at every single school board meeting, and I'm not trying to shame anybody, I'm just saying that our silence, where's it going to get us? What's your child going to come home doing before you realize that because you didn't want to get uncomfortable and speak out for your child, this is what happens. This is when I get mad. Sorry, guys. So then the teacher is going to refer the student to the class rights and responsibilities. Your child is uncomfortable. Well, you're supposed to be an ally. We don't care that you're uncomfortable, okay, first and foremost. So sorry that you're uncomfortable. I'm not sorry at all, because you should be a better friend. Reinforce the expectation that the classroom is a safe space for everyone but you. Because that sentence makes no sense. Everyone? Well, then why doesn't that child's uncomfortable? Why are you then referring that child to being an ally and the roles and responsibilities of the class if the class is a safe space for everyone? Everyone but. That's why inclusion is actually exclusion. Emphasize that students must respect the possibility that some people in the room may identify with scenarios in which characters are gay. That's a teacher's guide of what to do if a child is uncomfortable with same-sex role-playing at ages 11, 12, and 12, 13. Stop it. Okay. And then this is back to 6th grade, and I'm just going to try to keep this like under 2 hours. This is 6th grade. Why do you keep doing that? Sorry. Teacher's guide. Are you someone who knows the difference between sex and sexuality? Sexual behaviors. Sexuality is a fundamental aspect of human throughout life. Kinsey, children are sexual beings from birth. It grows and changes over time and is dependent on each individual person's understanding of themselves and others. Sexuality includes, but is not limited to, sexual behaviors. These are 6th graders. Sexual relationships, 6th graders, intimacy, how people express themselves, values, beliefs, and attitudes. PPRA can't do that. Where is the exception for our children? Where are the special accommodations for our children? Well, here's the thing. Opt out. Opt out, opt out, opt out. And I'll get to that in a second. But remind me. So sexuality is whether or not and how people choose to have children. I'm sorry, what? I can't tell you how many people have said, now I know why my millennial came home telling me they didn't want to have children, and they're now in college and hate me. Right there. Why are you talking about what people choose to have children? The kind of friends people have, how people feel about the way they look, who people are as individuals, the way people treat others. Sex can refer to sex assigned at birth or to sexual behavior. Sexual behavior usually involves touching oneself. That's another thing, guys, is this is full of masturbation. Full of masturbation. Full of pleasure, which I'm going to get to right now. The point, and this is the one thing, is that all of this, here we go. Outcomes of sexuality education. To contribute to an open social climate that is respectful towards sexuality, various lifestyles, attitudes, and values. To respect sexual diversity and gender differences and to be aware of sexual identity and gender roles. To empower, guys, that's the activist portion, that's the allies, because allies do what? If they are not LGBTQIA+, they become an ally, and they become the ones that then go out and speak up, and then become the activists. To empower learners to make informed choices and act responsibly towards oneself and one's partner. Okay? Guys, teaching consent is wrong. 100%. It is like a negotiation amongst children. They're minors. That's what teaching consent is. To learn to have knowledge about the human body, its development functions, in particular regarding sexuality. In particular regarding sexuality, not sex or biological sex. To learn to express feelings and needs, to experience sexuality in a pleasurable way, and to develop one's own gender role and sexual identity. To have gained appropriate information about physical, cognitive, social, emotional, and cultural... I'll be right there, babe. And prevention of STIs and HIV. So, my little one's here, so I'm going to go. But, so, just so you guys know... No, hey, this is not one for you, baby. I'll be right there, okay? I promise. 2 seconds. That's my cue, because I don't expose my children. Hey. But, real quick, before we go, I'm going to show y'all... 2 seconds, honey, I promise. What we're up against. Don't know if y'all have seen this. But if you go to our YouTube channel, let's see. YouTube. Here we go. Alright, our YouTube. It's full of good stuff. If you haven't taken the time. Let's go down. Where is Looney Pants himself? There he is.
Take personal responsibility for our children's education.
Oh, no, didn't want to do that.
Take personal responsibility.
Okay, this is Coalition for Sex Ed Reform. Virginia Coalition for Sex Ed Reform. And it's a little weird sized, but this is what we're up against. For our children's
education. One of the greatest betrayals we can commit upon our children is the partial or complete deprivation of information. It shows just how little we care, how little we believe in them. We need to give all of our kids all of the necessary tools available so they can have agency over their life and health. Without it, we set our children up for failure. We doom them to unnecessary yet avoidable struggle, strife, and suffering. 18 is not a magic number. You don't suddenly learn all the things you need to know to be a responsible, respectful, and self-actualized adult. Education is meant to empower and uplift humanity. Education ensures a future of good health, security, prosperity, and happiness for our children. We cannot in good faith say that we are ensuring that future if we are not providing a sex and relationships education that is complete, accurate, inclusive, and compassionate. We already know that in America and in our very own Commonwealth of Virginia, that our sex ed is leaving our kids behind.
Because my little ones is waiting for me, I'm going to cut that off there because you can find that on our YouTube channel. But that group, Virginia Coalition for Sex Ed Reform, you can look them up. Do you know who their partners are? Real quick. SECUS, Sex Ed for Social Change, Virginia Young Democrats, National Organization for Women, Loudoun County Now. Wait, Safe Space Nova, Virginia Council on LGBTQ+. Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Action Alliance, Transgender Assistance Program, Equality Nova Pride, Planned Parenthood. Get this, American Atheists. Guys, this is when atheism, the removal of God, wait for it, Equality Virginia, and the ACLU down at the JCAR hearing regarding the transgender model policy. GLSEN, URCD, it's got a donkey, so I'm guessing it, who knows. Center for Biological Diversity. Here's an important one. I did not know what this symbol meant right here. You see it? This one? There's the lighting too funky. Ooh, this guy. That is Washington area secular humanists. Okay, so when you add the atheists and the secular humanists into comprehensive sexuality education, secular humanism, ding, 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 atheism, ding, 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 comprehensive sex ed, ding, ding, ding. These are the people, guess what, guys? They've been lobbying. Can we for once get on the defense or the offense and not the defense? I was getting confused. For once, these guys have been lobbying. Look up their group. I'm not even done yet. Alliance for Progressive Virginia, Advocates for Youth, Repro Rising Virginia, reproductive rights. Gen Ratify, guys, wait, Gen Ratify, what did they do? Oh yeah, along with Pride Liberation Project, these are the same people organizing the walkouts. Oh, Fairfax County, Public School Pride. Secular Democrats of Virginia, LGBT plus Democrats, Diversity Richmond, Virginia Pride. Okay, that's quite a list of people lobbying, but they already have it in here. So if it's already in and they're still lobbying for it, can you imagine what's going to come if we don't get ahead of this? For once, can we unite on one thing? Because a generation of sexualized children, I'm going to speak from experience real quick. The life that these children will have will be, they will be nothing but sexual. Sexual beings they will be. Promiscuity, I can tell you that from experience. Drug use, because all they are is sex. That's all they are. Innocence, murder of it. Children have this tiny window, 10 years, maybe, where they don't have to deal with what's going to happen in the rest of the world. They can't, I tell my daughter this every single day. You can't ever get that back. And we're letting these people rob it and steal it and rape it from our children every single day we send them into schools. So, tomorrow, let's work out a game plan. Today, I'm overprocessed, as you can tell. This is not an issue that is up for debate. This is grooming. Keep your parents out of it. Talk about sex. Let's teach older children how to talk to you about it, not have you involved in it. This is grooming. And if you can't get comfortable with people saying, why are you calling me a groomer? I'm not a pedophile. I'm not calling you a pedophile. You're one, creating pedophiles. You're creating victims. You're creating abusers. But you are grooming children to be something else. That's grooming. Get comfortable with saying it. Because as long as we hide and we're like, oh, we don't want to go to our school board meeting because the VEA or the CEA or the PWEA or the FEA or the LEA, or they might be mean to us and call us this. Get over it. This is what they're doing to our children. Get over it, please. And I'm not trying to be a whatever anybody wants to call me, but for the love of God, these are children. God's children. Say that in a school board meeting and watch how many gasps you get. Everybody should be at school board meetings enraged that this is being allowed. Everybody should be enraged at this new government we have that hasn't done anything about it. Pledge allegiance to the RPV, the GOP, the Red Vest, whatever you want. I pledge allegiance to my children and to the United States of America. And real quick, he said, regarding opt-out, the law should require opting in. Ding, ding, ding. Here's the thing. Education transparency, the legislation that I wrote, did you know that school boards have the opportunity for opt-in? Know somebody running for school board? Have them read. Because the VSBA isn't doing it. There is an opt-in provision written into Virginia law for all of this. But that would be too complicated, wouldn't it, for the school boards to actually do their job? So, Jesus, bingo, there is an opt-in provision for all of this, if they were following the law. If they were following any of the law. But, like AOC said, what's law if nobody follows it? Period. There's law protecting everybody from everything. So, on that note, I got a little one. Y'all take